All right, everybody, welcome to this meeting for July 28th, 2020, Wilmington Rotary Club. I'd like to start the Zoom meeting today with invocation from Dale Smith, invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. Dale Smith.
Hello, everybody. Please bow your heads in silence. Dear Heavenly Father, please help us to stay focused on the objectives we have for this world. Peace, tranquility, the true brotherhood of man, freedom from hunger, from oppression, from sickness, the freedom to choose our own destinies. We reaffirm our commitment to the simple Rotary four-way test for all we do and support. We reaffirm our commitment to high ethics in all that we do. And we give thanks for all of the blessings, opportunities, and responsibilities that befall us as Rotarians. Help us to serve. Amen.
Amen.
If
everybody will unmute themselves, we'll do the, Dale, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic which
stands
one nation under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks very much, Dale. All right, Bo's going to talk a little bit about masks in a few minutes, but I just want to let everybody know, and if you'll look at the chat that's going on your Zoom screen here, you can see that myself and also Larry Sackett has ordered masks from Bo. If you would like to order masks, please take this time or any time during the meeting to send him a personal Zoom message there on the chat, or you can do the group message like we did. He's got a spreadsheet and he's going to be taking orders all through the meeting today. You can also email him anytime after the meeting. That was something I wanted to get out of the way. We're going to jump right into health and happiness now with Ann Coffey.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Ann.
Hi, Ann.
So under the health news, Howard and Martha McCain are pleased to report that Martha had successful breast cancer outpatient surgery on Monday morning. Her surgeon, Dr. Bradford Tyler, told him that they were able to remove all of the malignant tumor and margins, and she's resting now, and it will be several weeks before she's back up to speed. But thank you from Howard and Martha for your love and your support. Al Corbett brought to my attention that we now have 4 former district governors in our club that are over 75 years old. I was trying to do some effect by looking shocked. Don Atkins, Russ Lavelle, Harvey Ritchie, and Mary Martin. I bet not many clubs can match that. Jake Shepard is going to celebrate his 97th birthday on August 5th. I know he's not in this week's birthdays, but I'm going to put in the chat his address, that any of you want to send him a birthday card, I'll throw his address in the chat when I'm done. That way it would get to him by his birthday on the 5th of August. So the birthdays we have today on the 29th, I just saw him pop up, Rob Zappel, happy birthday. On the 30th, we've got Dr. Zito Zartarelli. On August 1st, Watson Snyder, and on the 3rd, Al Butler III. So I'm gonna try something different on the health and happiness, because it seems like every time we look at a video, it's not great news. And a neighbor sent me this back when times to get somebody to smile. So I'm gonna send you just a quick, fun video back when life was.
That's a little too close for comfort, lady.
Oh, damn.
What, you never seen a talking gargoyle before? Welcome to Illuminati headquarters. I mean, Denver International Airport.
This is awesome.
Hello? Do I know you?
Are you hungry?
Oh, I'm starving. You got anything for me? Those flowers look delicious.
Oh, it's because of the conspiracy.
Oh, it's because of the conspiracy. Look at me. I'm a real know-it-all. Will you get back over here? I got a question about this conspiracy. Did you have to buy an extra seat for your hat, sir? Sir, are you stealing a desk? Sir, you have resting confused face. Do you have a favorite animal or pet?
A caterpillar.
A caterpillar? Wouldn't you rather have a gargoyle?
No!
Yes. You know, you can actually put the phone down and have a conversation with me. But no, I'm a millennial. I've got to post it. I've got to snap face it and Twitter book it. Excuse me, miss, I've got a stain that needs some polishing. Can I borrow your cleaning cart?
Oh, no! That's fun!
I need your help. Guess what my favorite food is?
What?
No, I want you to guess.
Human?
Cumin. Yes, I love cumin.
I said human!
Oh, I thought you said cumin. I'm a real big spice guy. Furry hat guy, I can't believe you are wearing one of my friends.
Hey, this isn't your friend.
It used to be until you put it on your head, man.
How old are you?
Well, 243 years old now. I look good for my age, don't I?
Yeah, work out.
All the time. You should see my squats.
You're such a sweet talker.
Will you take me back home with you?
Let's go. I have some space in my backpack.
Actually, I think you have too much baggage for me.
And that's the end of health and happiness.
Thank you, Ann.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
That was good.
So I guess it's back to Robbie.
All right, here I'm back. Thanks for the reminder, Larry. We're going to move right along into guests. And I know that we do have some guests today. I did see Terry visiting again today. Where are you, Terry? Give us a wave. Hey, Terry, thanks for being here. All right. I know that Laura has a guest. Laura, there you are.
Yep, I'm here. Thank you, Robbie.
Thank you.
I would like to introduce Aubrey Parsley with the City of Wilmington. He's the director for the Wilmington Rail Realignment Project, and I believe he's been here once before. So please welcome Aubrey, who is online, I believe.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks, Aubrey, for coming. Give us a wave. All right. Next,
I see Aubrey.
Albert has a couple of guests and a visiting Rotarian that he will introduce. Albert, unmute yourself before you give us the information, please. Did we lose Albert? Is he still here?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, I lost you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Albert, you're getting feedback. You need to turn your phone off or whatever it is.
All right, I'm on. All right. Well, I had my phone and my iPad going. All right.
You need to turn one of them off.
Is that better?
Not yet.
All right. I like that. All right. Is that better?
Love technology.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to introduce my two guests. One is Diana Corbett. Diana and I work together. She's a partner in Corbett Package Company. And the other individual I'd like to introduce is Joe Smith. Joe heads up our trucking operation, and we do a lot of, put a lot of product through the port, in and out of the port with containers, moving containers in and out. So glad to have both of them. And the other one is Jack Clark. Jack is a visiting Rotarian. Jack's been with us a couple of times before from Bethesda, Maryland. Jack, are you on?
Yes, I am. Great to be here again.
Good. Good to have you. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Robbie.
Oh, thanks, Albert, and welcome Diana, Joe, and Jack. Thanks all of you for being here on our Zoom meeting today. Are there any other guests or visiting Rotarians? If there are, you could unmute yourself and say hello. Tell us who you are. All right. Hearing no other guests, we'll move right along. We've got a few announcements today. I want to turn it over to Steve Yates. Steve, if you'll unmute yourself, you're ahead of the curve.
Thank you, Robbie.
there.
I appreciate it. I just wanted to remind everybody that this weekend on Saturday, August the 1st, from 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock, Williston is having a work project basically on the grounds out front of their main entrance and spreading some mulch. And the new interim principal, Christopher, has asked for our club for help. And many of you have already volunteered, for which we are thankful, 4 or 5 of you. We can always use a few more hands. Todd Turner is going to be spearheading this on behalf of our committee, and I will put his contact information in the chat box. So if you would let either Todd or I know if you're able to help us this Saturday morning, we'd really appreciate it. As they say, more hands make quick and easy work. So I hope if you're available, you can spend some time in any amount, an hour, the whole 3 hours, whatever. So thank you very much, President Robbie. I appreciate the time.
And they can bring any kind of equipment with them that would be helpful.
Yes, that's true. Their shovels, certainly bring gloves. If anybody has, I know Charlotte Davis has an available wheelbarrow. We just have to get it to Williston from her house. If anybody has any wheelbarrows that they can bring, particularly the deep ones if available, that would be a big help. Thank you, Robbie, for reminding me.
Oh, great, Steve. Thanks so much. All right.
Would you please, I'm sorry, would you please repeat the time and date for the Williston?
Sure. The date is August the 1st, this Saturday, and the time is 9 a.m. till 12 o'clock if needed.
Thank you.
And the rain date would be the following Saturday, August the 8th at the same time.
Good question, Tolis. Thanks, Steve, for the quick answer. Next, hopefully everybody got my email this weekend. I'm sending them in a couple of different ways through P-mail and through some additional emails that go out. Dale Smith is the committee chair for the 4-way test committee, and he had an attachment that I included with our last email. Dale, do you have anything you want to say about that attachment? I know I did get it out, and hopefully everybody's had a chance to review it. Could you give us just a summary, Dale, of what we're looking at? Unmute yourself, and we'll go. There, oh. Dale, it unmuted, then it went back to mute. There you go.
Yes, thank you, Robbie, President Robbie. After following some of the things that have been going on in the world, in the United States in particular, with all of the conflicts and protests and so forth, the several members of our club asked that the 4-way test committee meet and decide what we might do to make sure that members of our club as well as the community know what we stand for, which is basically peace and cooperation among all people. And so we wanted to put together a statement that reflected our beliefs in Rotary. And so we put that together and took it to the board, and the board has approved one statement, which we're distributing to all members of our club, as we have just done. And the other statement is for the public, and we're not going to put out a press release or anything, but if anybody asks what our club stands for in terms of issues that are going on and the conflicts, then the statement would serve that purpose. So the other thing I will say is that at the district level, our district 7730 has established a committee under the for the purpose of putting more focus on diversity, equality, and inclusion, and peace. The Rotary International is putting a lot of emphasis on that, particularly on diversity and inclusion. And so I'm a part of that committee, as is RB. And as we move along through that process, I'll make sure that our club is kept informed, and in particular our committee, the Farewell Four-Way Test Committee, which is meeting again tomorrow afternoon, will take under consideration the recommendations that come out of that district-wide committee. So anyway, I'll be glad to answer any questions, but that's why we put those together.
Thanks, Dale. If anybody didn't get a copy and needs me to send another copy to them, I'd be happy to resend. I'm sure Dale can send that to you as well as an attachment and an email, so you could email Dale or I for another copy. Next thing, the last announcement, and I already mentioned this at the very beginning, but I know a lot of people have joined since I mentioned it. Bo Dean has been working on a small fundraiser, but more of just, something to be good for our club and good for Rotary in general with the mask project that he's taken on. You can, oh, wonderful, a screen share from Bo. You can certainly message him through Zoom today to order them. You can see that I've done that, and I think Larry's done that already. And I'm going to turn it over to Bo to give us a little more information.
So y'all can see the mock-up here of what they look like, I hope. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So the masks themselves are, we're going to donate any money that we make to COVID relief. New Hanover Regional Medical has an opportunity for that. All of these are washable, so they're reusable. I know a couple people, if you order a couple of them, that gives you a couple masks to wear during the week. It's a really great opportunity also for us to wear our Rotary Pride. So it says service above self on the front of it. All you have to do, it's very simple, is send me either something in the chat right now saying, order me, 2, 3, 4, whatever mask you do. Then Larry Sackett is going to send you the same way he does the billing. He'll send you a statement. You'll sign off on that with your credit card, and it'll be taken care of. If you also, instead of doing in the chat today, want to just send me an email, you can do that as well. And we're also going to send them directly to your home. Renee Jones, who owns Creative Touch, she's in Central Rotary. She's designed and created these for us. Actually donated the packets that we're going to be able to send them to you safely and send them directly to your home. If you want to send them to somebody as a gift, you just give us the address of whoever you'd like to send them to as a gift. So if there's a Rotarian somewhere else that you want to make a gift to, we can send them to somebody. So it's a really neat opportunity, and we're looking forward to making this successful, not only to wear our Rotary Pride, but also to raise a little money for COVID relief in the area. Just let me know whatever you like.
Thanks, Bo. Great work with that project and get it turned around really fast.
President Robbie, could I mention something? First of all,
Yeah,
thank
please.
you, Bo, for working on this project. You may not realize it, but if you send a chat to everyone, if a lot of people do that, it kind of clogs up the chat function. So you can send a chat to just one person. May I suggest, if you want to do that, when you click on the chat, pull down until you get to Bo's name and send that to him as what's called a private message rather than to everyone.
Good advice, Cleve. Thank you. All right. That's it for my announcements that I had on my agenda. Does anybody else have anything for the good of the Rotary Club today for Wilmington Rotary? I'm going to move right along. We'll have another opportunity to add to our, to say anything else for the good of the club at the end of the meeting. But I'm going to turn it over to Rob Zappel. If you will unmute yourself and introduce our guest today, our guest speaker.
Thank you, President Robbie. Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. I have the distinct pleasure of introducing to you not one, but two gentlemen that have helped to shape our lives and the lives of every citizen in New Hanover County and southeastern North Carolina over the past 6 years. And along the way have transformed the North Carolina Ports Authority, and specifically the Port of Wilmington, into a powerhouse in the shipping industry along the east coast of the United States. Now, when Paul Cozza became the director of the North Carolina Ports Authority in 2014, He was coming from the private sector, and when he saw that the Port of Wilmington was operating at more than 50% under capacity, he knew that that could not be tolerated. Paul quietly and effectively went about literally redirecting the traffic at the port, talking with the loaders, the offloaders, the crane operators, the longshoremen, all to create a way to get more trucks in and out of our port at speeds that no one thought was possible. Now, if the image of a professional sports coach comes to mind, a guy with a floppy hat, a persistent growl on his face, a stopwatch around his neck, and a clipboard standing at the front gate, timing every move of the trucks entering, offloading, unloading, and exiting to find efficiencies and a way to do it better and faster, to compete, well, you're right. And that's what Paul did. He brokered new deals with large shipping companies that had never considered using the Port of Wilmington. What he had heard was that our port was too slow. The channel was too narrow. There was no refrigeration facility. You see, in the shipping industry, it's all about time. Getting the ship from one port to another is only one part of the business. It's what happens when that ship hits the berth and the time that it takes to get the product off the ship and on the road to the customer. That transition game is the key. And that is where successful shipping companies make their money, and where ports go from being adequate to being great. Paul heard all of the criticism, and instead of defending the port's inadequacies, he got in the game, made the improvements to change the shipping company's minds. He found private investment to build a cold storage and processing facility at the Port of Wilmington so that fresh vegetables, poultry, and pork producers could quadruple the amount of product that they shipped. He worked with our state and federal legislators to secure the funding for improvements. He built new berths to accommodate larger ships, found new management talent that helped him bring in more and larger cranes, and worked with the Army Corps of Engineers to increase the width of the river in the turning basin so that newer, bigger vessels could dock and do business in Wilmington. We now have contracts with 5 international shipping lines. This past year, Paul and his entire team at the port celebrated the largest shipping vessel to ever stop at the Port of Wilmington, showing the world that if you wanted to do business on the East Coast, you better take a hard look at our port. There may be bigger ports, some with deeper channels, but if you want your cargo at the berth, off the ship, on a truck or train, and out the gate as fast as time possible, you will stop at the Port of Wilmington. I guess none of this should be of great surprise when you see Paul's background, a graduate of the United States Military Academy at West Point, serving his country as a military helicopter pilot, a graduate of the Executive Business Program at the University of Michigan, and the Masters of Business from Fairleigh Dickinson University. His success really begins to make a lot of sense. Now, in 6 short years, Paul has taken a sleepy little port that many had written off to the increased competition of larger ports, larger ships, and turned us into the port that punches way above its weight every day. No one overlooks us now. They're all too busy trying to get in line for a berth at the Port of Wilmington. Now, to make all of this happen, Paul needed first-rate talent, and that's what he found in Brian Clark when he brought him on board as the Chief Operations Officer in 2017. And over the past several years, Brian has taken over the reins of the operations at the Port of Wilmington and implemented many of the programs that I just mentioned, securing the 3 new huge cranes that now allow 2 ships to unload at the same time, the berth improvements, the channel improvements, and developed a master plan for the port to increase the volume of shipping containers at the port to over 1 million containers every year. In June of 2020, just last month, to no one's surprise, Brian was chosen as a successor to Paul Cozza as the director of the North Carolina Ports Authority, and will officially take over in January 2021 when Paul retires. I know I've said enough, but I think you can tell that I'm very impressed and incredibly thankful for the work that both of these men have done for our community and our state. Please join me in giving a warm Rotary welcome virtually to Mr. Paul Cozza and Mr. Brian Clark of the North Carolina Ports Authority. Paul, take it away.
Rob, thank you very much. Rob, I gotta tell you, you missed your calling. You need to do commercials and other advertising there. That was nothing close short of outstanding on all areas. So So we thank you all for having us on today. Hopefully you can see Brian and myself. We're trying to space properly here as we both get the opportunity. We do view it as an opportunity to talk to the Rotary. We'll try to, it's going to be a little bit difficult in this environment, but we'll go over some items that make up for North Carolina ports. And more importantly, I hope that we'll be able to just answer some questions and general questions about what's going on here. Just to start, I'll give you some overview and we'll spend a few minutes on some items. As North Carolina ports, we operate 2 locations here in Wilmington, as you know, and also in Morehead City. And give you an idea of some kind of fast facts, if you will, of what goes on. Here in Wilmington, we'll have over 5,000 what we call gate moves or truck moves that come through the port each day on our container, or each week on our container size. So we, as Rob says, we track a lot of statistics. We're really a numbers type of business, but it just gives an idea of what flows through here again that we see as activity, which is all economic activity for our region and state. We break our business into 2 forms. One is the container side, which I think everybody knows. You see the container ships, the boxes that go around. And then there's also a non-container side, which is we call general cargo. That we track in tons. So the container side we track in this in TEUs, 20-foot equivalent units, so like half a box. And then the other side is in tons. So in containers, we'll do over 350,000 TEUs here in Wilmington each year, and as that's growing, as Commissioner Zappel said. And between here and Morehead City, we'll do over 4 million tons of cargo that comes through our facilities. And these are imports and exports that we're talking about in both areas. We'll get questions time to time as to, well, how many ships come in and out of our locations? Together, we'll have over 1,000 ship calls a year. Ship call being when a vessel comes into the port to the berth and leaves is a call. So quite a bit of activity, which is also growing itself in these past years. We're a business. A lot of folks don't realize it. We're part of the state, we're part of DOT, but we're managed and run quite differently. We don't receive appropriations from the state like the other entities do to run our day-to-day business, and we're really independent from that standpoint. So we have a P&L statement, cash flow statement, balance sheet, just like other businesses do. And I'll give you an idea of the type of numbers there. We run on a fiscal year, same as the state. So we ended just this past June. And we're really proud and happy to say that we had another record year in all areas, especially what's given on with COVID, which I'm sure a lot of you have some questions about. Our annual revenues this year was over $60 million, all-time record. So it's a good sizable, I'll call it a little business. We'll generate over $16 or $17 million of cash each year. And that cash stays with us. The state doesn't take it back. So that can go to debt and it can go to further investments that we can make to invest in our state, in our ports, which we do. Our profit this year was $6 million, an all-time record again, which we're very happy to see. And we expect that to be continuing in these following years. And also, we don't employ many folks directly. A lot of people don't realize that, but we have right now about 228 people that work for us here and also in Morehead City, and we also have an inland terminal in Charlotte. So though we'll have at least over 1,000 people come in our facilities each day, most of them are other companies that are involved in doing business with us, but not directly part of North Carolina ports in the state. So just some interesting things that's going on. We are growing, we continue to grow. Even with the effect of COVID, what's happened from an economy standpoint, our container business was up over 5% year over year, which is really good. Give you an idea, back in January, February, we were up almost 15% year over year. But that scaled back because of obviously some of the things that was happening from the economy standpoint. General cargo, we were up over 35% year over year. So quite a bit here and in Morehead City of changes going on there. And then the other part we track, and Rob talked about it a little bit, which is very important, is we track our refrigerated container volume. The reason why that's so important is that's a real segment here around the Carolinas that is growing. We expect to continue to grow, and it's also directly hinged to our economy here. We have, as you know, a lot of pork, poultry, sweet potatoes, turkey, a lot of different type of exports that come in and out of our state. So we're really focusing on areas of where we can grow that volume so that it'll grow jobs around. And give you an idea, this year alone, our refrigerated volume was up over 20% year over year. But in the past 4 years, we've more than tripled our refrigerated volume coming through the Port of Wilmington. And we expect that to continue and to keep growing because there is really an underserved market here and around the state. Morehead City, although we're Wilmington-centric in this discussion, but talk about is very important. Honestly, when I first got here, we were discussing what was going to happen. There was questions to the state as what should we close Morehead City because it was just not enough business coming through it, and maybe it wasn't competitive enough. That's not the case. And actually what's happened is in these last 5 years, we've more than doubled our volume coming from Morehead City. We thought that was the case. There was a market available, and we just want to improve it. We're happy to say now we're investing in Morehead City like we are here as well, because there's a lot of additional business that can go there. And of course, all this business coming through means economic growth for around our state. Just something else to talk about is that our overall mission, North Carolina Ports, if you come into our office and if you go to any of our board meetings and we discuss it, as stipulated by the state, is to enhance the economy of North Carolina. Those of you who maybe heard me speak in the past, I'll say it's not just to push volume through the port, although there's a correlation. It really is enhancing the economy. So what we did is, well, what's a quantitative measure of that? And a few years back, we went to NC State and in their economics department to do a quantitative measure of how do we affect the state? The volume that comes through our ports, what does it do for North Carolina? So to give you an idea of just some stats on it, there's over 87,000 jobs in the state of North Carolina associated with business that comes through both our ports. On an annual basis, it's about $700 million of tax revenue that comes to North Carolina that's based on business that comes through our ports. And the number that we really like to talk about is 15.4 billion with a B, dollars of economic output comes to the state each year associated with business that comes to our ports. So, and this has been growing. In prior years, we've had studies and it was less. And that's what we really look at to say, are we doing our job on the standpoint of enhancing the economy of North Carolina? And personally, I know with Brian and the team that's going to be here is that that's going to continue to grow, and it should grow. So we help definitely around this region. We definitely help, obviously, the Wilmington area, but we also have tentacles that go well into the state. There's a gentleman on the call today that says he has a trucking company. I'm sure he knows and understands it. We have cargo that go to the western portion of our states as well as all around. So we're, again, a conduit for activity and a conduit for business in and around the southeast, but specifically North Carolina. Just a couple other things to talk about. We are really a full service of ports here in Wilmington. We do containers and we do this bulk and break bulk. And in Morehead City, we don't have containers, but we do bulk and break bulk business. So we're able to offer a variety of services, which are different parts of the logistics supply chain. And we kind of chuckle about it, but past this time in these last months since COVID, I think we've heard more about of logistics and supply chain and global supply chain than we probably heard in the last 30 or 40 years that we've been working in the business, because it's so much more apparent now because of what's happening in and around the world, and also happening because again, supplies and around. Lastly, we'll just talk a little bit about, then again, welcome to take questions, is we are reinvesting. Folks in here around Wilmington see it. We have been fortunate enough, and Rob talked about this, is that we do receive from the state capital appropriations that are being used to invest in our facilities. Currently, that represents $45 million a year from our General Assembly that we are to use on capital improvements. And this is where we were able to improve our berths, improve the cranes that we have, and also be able to, what Rob talked about, is widen our turning basin, which gave us the ability to take these much larger vessels. So for you all, and if you've ever had a chance to see them, we have one in actually today, to see these large container ships come in and out of the port. For us, we think it's really exciting because, again, that's world economy and that's growth. But again, as we've talked about, 6 years ago when I first got in, what I did hear about was all the things we couldn't do as opposed to the things we could do. And frankly, there were a couple of things we needed to change from capabilities, but there were a lot of mindset changes and capabilities that really were just not current with what was available around us. And getting these larger vessels in is just the start for what we'll see for the future as time goes on. We're also doing, Brian did this year, is investing in more of a reefer rack systems on the port here. That's essentially how we're able to have refrigerated cargo come in and out in containers, and that's going to continue. And then if you come down around the facility here in the coming months, you'll see really a big change as our gate complex for a container side of where we have container trucks that come in and out is going to get replaced with a whole new gate complex that's going to give us the ability that Commissioner Zabel talked about to double our capacity throughput that we'll need through the time here. So I'll stop at this point just again to hopefully answer some questions. I'm sure you'll have some that are out there, but I think more importantly, as I talk about these things, and Rob's heard me say, this really is a team, and we all appreciate the good comments about what we've been able to do here, but I think what's more importantly is when you get the region around it and you get Raleigh around it, you get the entire state, it shows that we can do of being able to compete with the ports around us. So we do compete with them, it's strict competition. And what we can do as a state, if we get all our resources together for being able to really improve our capabilities for the future. And again, for you all, this is all jobs, jobs, jobs. Because when folks say what's going on with port, where things go, my answer all the time is, how's our economy doing? And everybody, I think, understands much more now as we see what's happening in our global world is that it's a global economy. And as the Southeast continues to grow, as we see that the basis of more people, of manufacturing, other things happen, the states that are able to capitalize on their transportation network, ports, airports, road, rail, bridges, will really continue to see some good economic growth, which we want to see obviously for our state and the region in time. So with that said, I got Brian here. If you got questions, he'll answer the hard ones. I'll answer the easy ones. And really, please feel free just to ask us questions so we can go into more answers about some of the things we have going on here.
Paul and Brian, thank you so much. Our members have the ability now on their screens to raise their hand if they have a question, and we will forward them to you as they come through. So folks, go to it.
I've already raised my hand.
Yeah. Tullis was first in line here, Larry.
All right, I'm not seeing the raised hands on my screen, so.
Okay, I'll follow that here. We have Tullis.
Here's another one. Hi, my name is Tullis, and I don't know how long ago was that I read that all ships coming from overseas with merchandise to be delivered in the United States, where they may have 2 or 3 multiple locations to go to deliver it, they have to unload only in one location, and then the domestic infrastructure must take over for the distribution. I read then that it was some kind of a law that determines that or directs that. Is that true?
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Brian Clark. Perhaps I can answer that question. On the containerized traffic, vessel services are typically, we like to refer to them as bus stops. They operate on very regular schedules. They will typically call multiple ports on the East Coast or the Gulf Coast or on the West Coast, depending on where they're transiting from. But typically, a vessel will call into one port where they will discharge and load cargo for that respective area, and then they will move their way up or down the coast. What will not happen is cargo from, say, New York will not be loaded on a vessel and then discharged in North Carolina or further south, unless those vessels are U.S. flag vessels. There's a Jones Act that does not allow domestic transportation on foreign flag vessels. But typically, depending on the inland connections at those ports, containers can either move by rail to an inland destination, or they'll move by truck, typically within a 300 or so mile radius of that port location. You can go further, but those are typically ranges that we see in the industry.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank
We have a question now from Mimi Cunningham. Mimi, would you unmute your microphone and go ahead with your question, please? Mimi, you need to unmute first.
Okay, now?
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay. Thank you both for being here. I have two questions. I'm curious about the status of the land in Brunswick County, and has the big train that was supposed to come through started coming?
Well, thanks, for two parts. For the Brunswick County side, there is nothing in our strategic outlook right now of developing any of that property. If some folks, what Mimi's talking about, there's about 600 acres that the port purchased, oh gosh, well before my time, at least 10 years plus ago, that's still owned by the port and thus the state. But as I said, there's nothing strategic outlook of doing anything with that there. Regarding train is that there's some, again, some misconceptions or confusion of what's happening with the trains. We've seen increased train activity. However, the sizes of the trains have not really increased as much. It's more of on the basis of carrying other cargo, being container side. So there's no 2 mile, 3 mile, 1 mile length trains or things that you do hear about. It's a great question, maybe. But we are seeing some increased rail traffic, but it's been in the same standard size of trains that we've seen in the past. You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Mimi, for that question. We have Rhonda Amoroso next. Rhonda, you are unmuted, so go right ahead.
Yes, hi, thanks, Cleve. Yes, hi, Paul. I have two questions. The first one is, I know you have give tours of the port area. My husband is in the men's club and had a fabulous tour there a while ago. And I know we have COVID now, but I would love to take a tour of the port. I drive past there, I can't say on a daily basis any longer because I'm not in the car anymore, right? But I am just enamored by the whole thing, and I would love to take a tour. So if you can comment on that, how you go about setting that up, if they're available now, and then I'll get to the next question.
Sure. No, we do tours. I'll say in normal times when we're not in with the current situation. It's not individual tours. We do them as groups. So let's say if the Rotary, if you all wanted to put together a tour, what we could do is if you email me, I can send you our point of contact name, and we could go ahead and do that. We ask to try to get at least 20 folks together if we can, just for a basis, of concentration. And unfortunately, we're not doing it now because of social distancing, but we hope in the future we'll be able to do that again.
Okay. My second question is, I hear oftentimes about sex trafficking and little girls coming in on the containers. Can you comment on that? Is it true here in Wilmington? How do you detect that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Security in general will talk about. So we haven't had that since I've been here as anything like that is thank God has not happened. But so we have two federal partners that work with us. Our port is an international gateway. It's a port, same thing as an international airport. So we have Customs and Border Patrol that actually have reside in an office that's on our port that are responsible for if there's any members of a crew that needs to get off the vessel, enter the United States or vice versa, they are entering through a gateway, so they'll carry that part, as well as they'll also help on the security side quite a bit of what comes in or out on containers, as well as of bulk cargo. So our job is to facilitate their mission, really, and their mission being to protect us all as American citizens of what comes through the port. They have an enormous amount of data that's available to them on watching what are imports, what gets exported, and especially on the container side. So what I would say is what would happen is that we'll periodically, they'll ask us, and we could have a container ship coming off maybe offloading 700, 800 containers, and they'll say, this container, and each container has a container number, SEAU, blah, 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 we want to see it. So our job is when it comes off the vessel, we identify it, we hold it, we give it to them, and they'll make a actual inspection, opening up the doors. So it's really, they're our federal of interest partners on the basis of that side of security, and do it very well. on both parts. And our job is to help them do that. The other federal partner is the Coast Guard. And the Coast Guard also looks from a security standpoint with vessels, with crew, and also protecting us from the basis of a gateway in and out of our country.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Rhonda, thank you for your question. I don't see any other hands up at this time. If anybody does have another question, just open up your participants window and click raise hand and we'll see you. John Meyer. Okay, John, please unmute your microphone and go ahead.
I'm curious what the net inflow and outflow is. At times we've seen hundreds of empty containers stacked up around the edges of the port. How does that stand these days?
The volumes, surprisingly, despite the impact, the volumes have remained strong. As Paul said, we actually had a year-over-year increase. We do have a fair supply of empty equipment available for each of the lines. But that's strategic. I mean, it's important to have those empties available for export bookings. So we do encourage the lines to reposition equipment here if they don't have import loads that will turn into empties. So we work closely to make sure that we meet their needs and that we have the equipment available and we're able to dispatch that equipment to their trucking community as they need to fill bookings.
Okay, John, thank you for your question. I see some more hands have come up. Dave Berkheimer, do you have a question?
I do, thank you. I can't figure out how to raise my hand.
You raised your thumb, so that
I did, thank you. I've been spending a lot of time in Morehead City, and there's a great restaurant there that I can see the port. Can you talk a little bit about the differences, I mean, in terms of volume and types of cargo between Wilmington and Morehead?
Sure, I'll provide a little bit of information. So from a facility size, it's roughly about 200 or so acres. Part of that is operated by NC Ports. Part of it is leased to a tenant. We also have about 150 acres over on Radio Island that's partially developed. There's some tank farms there, but largely there's a lot of available property in Morehead City. As Paul mentioned, we only move bulk and break bulk cargo through Morehead City. Most of that cargo, except for some certain project cargo, actually is unloaded from a vessel and stored in a warehouse. And then it's delivered out to truck, depending on which type of cargo. We handle lumber up there, which is probably the largest single commodity. We handle a lot of rubber for tire manufacturers. So that's import rubber in small crates that then gets delivered out and used in the tire manufacturing. We handle a lot of import grains, organic grains, and then we handle fertilizers. There's some aggregates and some smaller quantities of different volumes, some asphalt and stuff that's handled up there. From an infrastructure standpoint, we have one gantry crane. It's a new investment. We brought a Liebherr crane on board last year. It's got some great capacity for lifting using buckets or wires to lift to whatever cargo we're required to lift. We do have two older cranes there. They're actually 1960s vintage. They have been mothballed. They're actually being removed from the facility next month. And then we're looking longer term at adding some crane capacity up there for anytime we might have to have a two crane operation. So, you know, as Paul said, a lot of great growth over the last number of years, and also some great opportunities in the future that we're looking at.
Okay, thank you.
I'll just add on for you. We use this term of general cargo and bulk and break bulk. A bulk cargo is what's called in transportation like a free-flowing commodity. So that would be like products like grain, iron ore, fertilizers, actual free-flowing commodities that go into the holds of the ship, and they're brought in and out by crane. Break bulk is going to be some sort of a finished product that doesn't go into a container. So it might be large pieces of sheet metal, rolled sheet metal. It might be different places of steel. It might be actually equipment, things like that. So that's what we categorize as general cargo, bulk and break bulk, and then containers, you all know, it's anything that can get inside a box.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Rob Zappel is next in line. Rob, would you please unmute your mic and go ahead?
Thanks, Cleve. Paul and Brian, thanks so much for joining us, and congratulations to you, Brian, about your coming up and taking the reins over. I think it's just terrific. The question I had was about debris and I guess the trash that comes in when a ship comes in from from another country, or certainly out of our state. I know it's classified as kind of international debris. It's not allowed to go to our landfill, and I think more importantly, it's not allowed to go to our recycling facility that we have here in New Hanover County. Could you comment on that? And do you see any way around that? We certainly could use that debris going to our recycling, especially.
Great question, Robin. A few things. One is this is very, very I'll say watched closely by Coast Guard, by Corps of Engineers and other areas. So give you an idea of what happens with these vessels. So U.S. law has it that when a ship is within 200 miles of the U.S. coast, it is mandated to switch over to a clean burning fuel that's very much limits any type of emissions that is used by its engine. So it's a great thing, the law that was put in place. So when the vessels are in our area, it's burning what's considered more of a gas oil. It's not considered a dirty fuel. Number two is from a ballast perspective. So ballast is, if the ships take on its ballast water for stability reasons. Very strict, again, laws that are put in place of where a ship can or cannot ballast. And as you think about it, we don't want to have, and it's both sides of changes that if a ship took on ballast somewhere, let's say in Latin America, and it discharges somewhere in U.S. waters, that could just be a change of the type of species that could be in those waters. So very, very strictly watched and administered. So number two doesn't happen. Other part that if there's any types of, let's say if a ship has any type of waste products or anything that's associated with its operations, watch very closely by U.S. Coast Guard, and it's administered that it has to be safely discharged in certain types of equipment, certain types of material, and cannot be used to pollute. So what's great of the system that we have in and around the state and in all the United States and watch is that because these vessels are coming in and out of different areas, there's really extremely limited, if anything at all, of how it can affect our environment. Our job in that is to help Coast Guard and help all the other entities make sure that happens.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Our next question comes from Steve Yates. Steve, would you unmute yourself and go ahead with your question?
Yes, sir. I was just curious about the wood pellet industry. I know we have the 2 domes out there, and at one time it was really going strong. Is that still a strong business? And just curious.
Sure, the volume has been growing steadily. They've been in operation for, I think, 3 years now, a little over 3 years. They have some plants that have come online that have increased the volume. Most of those wood pellets move into the port by rail, and then they're offloaded from the rail cars and placed in the domes, and then conveyed from there to the vessels. And typically, at least 1 vessel per month we'll see come alongside to take on a load of export pellets. We expect the volumes to continue to grow. They do have capacity in those domes for additional pellets, and they certainly have the capacity to add vessel calls on an annual basis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And we have one more from Albert Corbett. Albert, I believe you're already unmuted, so go ahead, please.
Paul, thanks for all you've done here. You've made quite an accomplishment, and the port and in fact the entire state of North Carolina is indebted to you for all that you have accomplished. And Brian, I guess this is for you. The challenge for you is to make another quantum leap. And I know at one time when I lived in Savannah and Charleston were very competitive, and now Charleston has leapt well ahead of Wilmington and Savannah. I understand. What is it going to take to assist you from the state or wherever in making that climb?
Sure, and just as as a reference, Savannah is actually the largest single port on the East Coast by way of volume as a single port operator. Charleston has done a great job and has invested quite a bit, and they actually have new capacity coming on next year. And Virginia is also actually a competitor of ours. As we look at our business, we handle, and Paul referenced our mission of supporting the economy in North Carolina, really by attracting volumes and reducing the handling cost for cargo moving in or out of the state. Today, we only handle about 10% of the containerized volume that either starts or stops in North Carolina. So that's obviously a focus area. There are additional global services that we're focusing on attracting to North Carolina ports. There are industries that are not served today through our port that should be, and we are focused on attracting those services. We also don't want to forget about the general cargo side. We are a fairly balanced business. Roughly half of our revenue comes from the general cargo side, and has really helped us weather the storm of some of these uncertain times, the trade wars, the COVID impacts that we had this general cargo business to rely on from a revenue stream. So we are going to look at investing on the general cargo side, both here in Morehead City. We have warehouses that are dated. We have capacity that can be increased to handle additional volumes and handle them more efficiently, and continue to grow both sides of the business.
Okay, thank you. Matt on an iPad has been ready to ask a question. Matt, go ahead, please. Please unmute yourself.
I did. Okay, so here's my question, and I sent a chat to everyone. At one point in time prior to the global pandemic, there was some environmental concerns about expanding the scope of the port. And that was prior to the global pandemic. I want to know what the status of that initiative is, and is it on hold pending the end of the pandemic, or is it moving forward? And basically it involved environmental protections associated with expansion of the port and endangered species in the Cape Fear River.
Okay. Matt, I think if I understand correctly, you're talking about one of the projects we have is further enhancing the channel. Is in that respect that you're asking of the question as the expansion side?
Yes, that's correct.
Good, thank you. Part of the project that we have also is as we have these large vessels that are coming in, they continue to get bigger, and the ports around us, Jacksonville, Savannah, Charleston, Norfolk, Baltimore, you can go all the way up the coast, have put projects in place that they're able to handle these vessels and to be able to take the sizes and even getting larger. So as part of it, we initiated about 3 to 4 years ago a project with the Corps of Engineers, who is the federal agency that administers this, is looking at widening some parts and also deepening some portions of the river to be able to allow these vessels coming in. Then to give you an idea, where we currently are at right now is 42 feet at mean low water is the depth of the Cape Fear Channel coming in. Long story short, through a lot of different type of engineering work and different types of work, looking at the impact associated environmentally as well as costs, what came up from the Corps of Engineers is that a depth of 47 feet would be the best, I'll say, as a balance of being able to preserve and keep economic traffic coming through the port for years to come, but also balance with environmental concerns and balance against cost. And there's a lot of work that went into those different areas that's happening. This project is currently been approved by the Corps of Engineers, pending also a NEPA review, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And it's now goes, as the steps go, it goes to Congress for approval, just approval, again, pending the NEPA review, which is the National Environmental Protection Act review, which should take place. So of what would happen with this project, one things that would also is that there's already been work that's been completed that as you make these changes, there are some environmental impacts that happen. Fortunate to say, they're not drastic, however, they're in place. And that's that part of NEPA review that will still be done maybe in this next year.
And then what are impacts, then it's our job is to mitigate them, and mitigate them by doing improvements and spending money in other areas, basically to reverse them. That process is done with the Corps of Engineers, the federal government, and also with then agencies around the state. Our take on this is that, you know, we all live in this area. We're all good. I'm staying here. I'm not moving in the environment. So we want to see prosper and be able to continue to compete with what states around us are doing. But we want to do it smart, and we want to do it with minimal environmental impact. Norfolk's going to 55 feet. Charleston's 52 feet. Others are going. We purposely did not look at going that deep because, as you do, that increases dramatically environmental impacts. However, we want to go to a spot that we can continue to be able to compete with these ports around, and that's what we're looking at doing. Again, it's our project on the basis of coming up with it, but it's, again, the Corps of Engineers is the federal entity that does all of the analysis, approval, and everything else that happens.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. I'm going to stop it right there. Our meeting ends sharply at 1:30, so here we are. Paul and Brian, thanks so much for being here. We know how big the port is and how big of a part of our local economy it is, but so many of us in this group, and I'm sure all across Wilmington, don't have the opportunity to interact with the ports day to day. So it's great to hear what's going on and to hear what you guys are doing and how the ports are improving and will stay a great part of our economy. Thanks both of you for being here. Thank you.
Thank you. And great questions. They really were.
Awesome. Todd, I saw you had your hand up. Did you have anything to add about the about Williston maybe?
No, I had a question for the speakers, but since you've asked, I would just say bring gloves and rakes and shovels, and if you got a wheelbarrow, it would be welcomed. And I hope to see everybody on Saturday.
Thanks, Todd. And if you want to stick around after we close the meeting down, Paul and Brian, if they have a minute, may be able to answer another question for you. And Lynn, I saw you had your hand up.
Lynn, you need to unmute. There you go.
It was just a question for the speakers.
Okay. Thanks, Lynn. Thanks, everybody. If y'all want to stay, if Paul, Brian, do y'all have a minute to stay after?
Yeah, Brian needed to depart, but I could stay probably for another 5 minutes or so.
Sounds good. If they have questions, we'll let them ask you about that after. I'd like to wrap up now. Let's see if there's anything for the good of the club. Anybody like to say anything else before we go through the four-way test? All right. I am going to put everybody on full screen, and if you'll unmute yourselves, we're going to do this a little different than we have in the past. I have just sent a chat to everybody with the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. All right. And for this first try of this, you can pick it up right there with an answer. I'm going to have anybody raise their physical hand if they would like to do one, and I'm going to call on your name. So I'm going to say first, Tolis.
Is it the truth?
Second, Rob Zappel.
Is it fair to all concerned?
Third, Cleve.
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
And fourth, Laura.
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Rotary.
Rotary.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Meeting.
Bye.
We'll see you soon.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay.
So on.
Is Paul still there?
In keeping with what President Robbie just said, we will keep going for a few more minutes and take care of questions that people might have. Paul is still there. He's still unmuted. Lynn Boney was going to ask a question. Lynn, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm following on the thread of the last question. Paul, thank you. Great presentation. You were talking about the depth of the other ports and touched on the environmental concerns. I'm going to bring up a topic, meaning moving the port to Southport, understanding that the North Carolina Ports owns all the acreage in Southport. I know that the Southport residents thought that was a terrible idea. Do you see that as an alternative? And by the way, what's the depth of the Southport area, the property that you own?
Yeah, good question. Again, we spoke a little bit in the beginning about it. You know, my take when I got here was to be able to use the facilities that we have and to be able to use them to their full capacity, which we're not at now at all. So as I said, there was a prior question, there's nothing in our planning that's to, you know, change the location or move it if anywhere. You know, who knows what 20 or 30 years brings or something along those lines, but we can do it efficiently here. We can do it effectively here. The distance, sometimes I'll get questions from folks, oh, you know, the distance up the river, does that put you on competitive or things? So, you know, we're 26 miles up the river from the, out there at the anchor of, give you an idea, Savannah's 25 miles up the Savannah River. And as Brian said, they're the #1 container port on the East Coast. So competitively, it's not really an issue. And as long as we have space and we have the capacity and the infrastructure, I think it's better for us as a state is to, you know, let's get the max out of what we have here right now. Concerning of depth down that way, the channel has different depths when you look at it as it's coming in. Some areas it's 42 feet in low tide, other areas it's 50. So down at that area there, I don't know specifically around it, but it would be of a similar type of depth that would need to be dredged to the 47 feet. Just honestly, not as far up the river, obviously, as if you were coming up to Wilmington. Now, around that parcel and around that facility, of that land, there's nothing that's been dredged there at all, and there's a lot of that very shallow. So there would be, you know, substantial environmental impacts to turn that area into a working container port at some stage.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Todd Turner had a question. Todd, please unmute. I see you have unmuted. Go ahead.
Hey, Paul, thanks again for your remarks. It's good intel, particularly this last thing you said about the distance from the anchorage into the port. That was, it gave me a visual that I've always wondered about. Having grown up in Kinston, I've been watching the Global Transport Development Project since the early 90s, and I'm wondering how integral that project has been to the growth of the Port of Morehead City and or Wilmington. Thanks.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. It's another good question. Is the where there's a connection with the Global Transport is mostly on the Morehead City side because of the rail that leaves Morehead City that goes near the Transpark, and also now there's a rail link that goes in. We do carry there's a aircraft pieces of aircraft parts, a fuselage that leave that facility that go overseas for Airbus. And we do some business that way for quite a bit, actually, that leaves out of Morehead City. Other than that, there has not been a huge base of additional business that's gone through there. That's been related to international traffic. However, we stay close with them. If you're up there, I do hear that they've been getting success in some other areas as well. As you probably know, they're really trying to capitalize on the airport part and the actual landing strip to try to do some things there, which we'd love to see. And I think it'd be really good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, it looks like our last questioner is Matt's iPad. Matt, would you unmute yourself, please?
Yes, Paul, I was interested in what vehicles may be available for public input into the Corps or the Coast Guard or whatever agencies to allow public input. What mechanisms are available for that?
Are you saying just in general matter or specifically for the Harbor Enhancement Project?
No, probably just general, I guess in general sense. Yeah, I guess.
Okay. No, there's two parts. One is you can send information to us if it's particularly on something that we have control on. There's different ways of getting to us. We have board meetings that are open meetings. We also have, if you go on our website, how you can communicate with us, and we love to do those things. We really do. So if you communicate and have a question on the website or other things, it gets to the right folks.
If it's core related, again, they have avenues that's for public comment and public related types of things that you can ask questions about and get into. And if you ever have challenges on that, just get hold of us here and we can help you. But they're really good if required by law to do some of those things as well.
Perfect.
I think Coast Guard has the same.
Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
Okay, I see President Robbie doesn't appear to be on this call anymore. We have 13 participants left, so I think we all want to say thank you to Paul and Brian for their work. Thank you to Lynn Boney for putting this program together. Been very informative, and we've already had the 4-way test, so the only thing that remains is to say goodbye. So I will say goodbye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.